What's going on, guys? Cabby Tech back with another video. Bear with me a second. Just change that around. Try not to keep the light in there. Yeah, so this is just a video, kind of like an update on my mental health. Shit, I'm so sorry. Just literally trying to record this on my iPhone, so I'll try and keep it as steady as possible. Apologies for the bags under the eyes and the snotty voice. I'm struggling with my hay fever a little bit. But yeah, it's been pretty much a year since I slipped into what was probably the most difficult time of my life in terms of slipping into a real deep depression. I think I've felt depressed before, but this was on another fucking level. And it was back in July last year, I believe, June or July last year. I don't know. Basically what happened, I was out on a night out, had a few too many beers, as you do, had a really good time, woke up the next day, usual hangover. My hangovers have always been worse because I've always had anxiety, or, you know, especially hangover anxiety. But yeah, I had a really bad panic attack to the point where I was taken to A&E. Genuinely thought I was having a heart attack, couldn't breathe, numbness throughout the whole body, literally couldn't feel anything at all. To be told that there was nothing wrong, and that it was essentially what they thought it was a panic attack. I'd had panic attacks before, but nothing on this level. Or at the time I didn't feel like I had. I probably have done. But yeah, thought I was dying, went to hospital, told it was nothing, essentially, and it was probably alcohol related and to do with my anxiety, which was understandable. The next couple of days after that, had the usual low mood from alcohol, and then out of nowhere, just started feeling really low, like lower than I've ever felt for a long time, I think. But I think the worst thing was I couldn't put my finger onto what was causing it or where it had come from. But clearly I must have had some stress going on prior to this kind of attack, and it had just been building and obviously come to a head. So went to the doctors and tried to have a conversation, which went nowhere because it was just palmed off with anxiety, but it just felt more than that. So they give me propranolol, which is a beta blocker, which will just slow down your heart rate, and it kind of helped a little bit in terms of it would make me feel more relaxed. But after a week of taking that, I slipped into suicidal depression. I think is the best way to kind of explain it. Every other thought that went through my head was about taking my own life, and the saving grace was that I was petrified of these thoughts. I didn't want that to be what was gonna become of me. I didn't want to let them take over. So yeah, went back to the doctors, and when I say every other thought, I mean every other thought that went through my head was about suicide. So it would be not planning to do it and not thinking about how I would do it, but it would be like, what's the point? You're going to feel like this for the rest of your life. There's no way out. Kill yourself. But I never had any inclination to go ahead with it at all. It was more the fact that they were there that I would think about them even more, trying to kind of, trying to understand why they were there. So I would Google, which would bring on more symptoms, and you know, it leads to other diseases, and then you start convincing yourself that you've got all of these things wrong with you, and just create this huge web of fucking death, basically. Like, you know, at one point I thought I had a brain tumour from all these symptoms that I thought I had, from Googling all of this different information. uncovering illnesses that I'd never heard of, but suddenly I'd start feeling symptoms of that. I convinced myself that I had those illnesses, and it was just, my life was just a fucking mess. I just felt like there was no way out. So obviously took myself back to the doctors and tried to say what was going on, and it was just palmed off as anxiety. I wouldn't even have a conversation about depression, because anxiety is on my medical file, and because I would say to them, like, I don't want to harm myself, like, I'm not trying to harm myself, but these are the thoughts I'm having. And they had nothing to say. They just prescribed me with something called sertraline, which is an SSRI, which essentially is there to help stabilise your mood. But unfortunately, you know, that doesn't work for everyone. It doesn't work for everyone, just palming someone off with pills, hoping that they'll feel better. But it doesn't fucking work like that. So anyway, at the time, I obviously would have took anything I could have got my hands on to make me feel better. So I went home, felt a little bit better that I'd been to the doctors, and felt like I was starting to get things sorted, and started taking the tablets. Now, I knew that the first 2 weeks would be rough to get them into your system, because I've taken something called citalopram in the past, and that made me feel pretty shit for a couple of weeks. Like, it would affect my sleep. I'd have really vivid dreams and nightmares, so it would knock me about a bit. So I was a little bit wary with the sertraline, but kind of embraced the fact that was probably going to happen with these as well. But it didn't. To be fair, it didn't. It did start to stabilise my mood for a little bit, but then out of nowhere, it just kind of stopped working, and I just lost faith in medication. I could have gone and spoke to them and got my dosage upped, or, you know, or tried something else, but I just felt like medication wasn't something that was going to help fix me. So I slipped into a deep state of depersonalisation. So it come from Googling all these things, and my brain just got to a point where it couldn't take any more stress. So it's essentially a defense mechanism, but at the same time it's absolutely terrifying, because you feel like nothing's real, everything's like a dream. And the closest thing I can describe it against is essentially anyone who smoked weed or cannabis and had severe YE, where you've been paranoid and that sort of feeling where you feel completely outside of yourself. That was how I felt for 8 weeks straight. 8 weeks feeling like nothing was real, having suicidal thoughts at the same time, and anxiety, and thinking I was having I had a brain tumour. I laugh about it now, because to people who haven't gone through it sounds so ridiculous, but it's so very, very real. So what I did was I went back to the doctors. I demanded that I would see another doctor. I kicked up a fuss about it for once, because this has essentially been going on for, I feel like it's been building for years and years and years, and I always thought I could deal with it on my own and just took what the doctor said as gospel. But, you know, this had gone to another level. So kicked up a fuss and got to see a doctor who's not much older than me, actually, and he was absolutely fantastic. He took out a bit of paperwork called a GAD test, so a general anxiety disorder test, and it's essentially a questionnaire of about 20 questions, and it would be a question, and it would ask you how you feel in response to those questions, from on a scale of 1 to 10. So 1 being not very severe, to 10 being very, very severe. And it'd be things like, what's the best way? Things like, does it impede on the tasks you do in a daily life, suicidal thoughts, etc. And my GAD score was not massively high, actually. So he, as bad as I felt from him, from a medical perspective, my depression wasn't that bad. It was more about the ruminating thoughts. So he could see that I was having these thoughts, but I wasn't actually kind of depressed. My mood wasn't that low, because it wasn't. It was more fear than anything. But that one thing, I've been going to the doctors for 10 years about my anxiety and depression, and not once has anyone gone through it properly with me, and it just proves how much this system is failing people. So I immediately felt some relief, because I felt like I was getting somewhere. He was fuming that they'd put me on propranolol. He said himself it was something that he would never prescribe to anyone in that sort of state. And we both decided that the next kind of best course of action for me was CBT therapy. So I did a little bit of reading on cognitive behavioural therapy about what it was, and it's essentially teaching you to be more mindful about what's going on in the present, in the here and now, rather than worrying about what's happened in the past or how you're going to feel in the future. It's concentrating on what's going on in the world now and keeping yourself grounded, and also training to deal with the thoughts and accept them as normal rather than fighting them, because the more I would fight them, the stronger they would come back. And I think that's the same with anything. The more that you know, even if you're not depressed about anything, you don't go through any anxiety or depression or anything like that, the more you think about something and the more you try to understand it, the stronger that thought will become, whether it's good or bad. So it's just about alleviating the stress from allowing those thoughts to be there, and that they're actually not harmful at all. And this was a huge thing for me. So after about 2 weeks, I was lucky enough to get in quite quickly with them. I was introduced to my therapist. I'd stopped taking the sertraline because it wasn't working for me. And essentially what I would do is I would go and speak to my therapist for an hour once a week, which was every Thursday, and this lasted for 8 weeks. And we would go through lots of different things, which I'm going to go through in a separate video. I won't go through them now. I just wanted to kind of give a bit of background information as to what's happened and where I am now. So I am going to do a video of the CBT techniques that I've learned and how they've helped me, and how maybe they can help people that are going through the same sort of thing. So fast forward to now, I'm feeling a hell of a lot better than I was. I'm able to deal with things a lot better than I ever have done. I understand things more, and I understand things which will potentially trigger my anxiety and depression, and things that will help with it. And little things like diet, what times that you eat, not even so much what you eat, but the times that you eat, the amount of water that you drink. These are such nominal things, but they have a huge effect on people's mental health. So I've had the reason I've posted this video is, one, because it's been a year, but the last couple of days I've had something similar where I've had these similar thoughts to what I've had a year ago. Now, I don't know if that's because I'm subconsciously aware that it's been a year since I've felt that way and they've kind of crept back in, but the way I feel about them being there and the way that I feel that I can deal with them is so far gone compared to how I was last year, that I'm not scared that they're there. Yes, they can be upsetting at times, but I'm not scared that they're there. I'm not worried. You'll get a thought creep in me, think, oh, here we go again. But it's not about snapping out of it, because that's the worst thing that you can say to anyone. It's just about accepting that it's there, and that it's okay to talk to people. We have to talk to people about it, because even if you feel like you can't talk to anyone, a great step to take is just to write those thoughts down. Just allow them to come out. So if you start keeping a diary of as ridiculous and as horrible as those thoughts can be, just write them down, because it gives them a place to go rather than having them circulating around your mind. And I can promise you that over a period of time, you will see a benefit in doing so. And I'll just implore anyone that's going through any sort of issues similar to what I've been through, because there are millions of people going through the same thing, and unfortunately our health services all over the world don't entirely understand it and have no means of just giving you a treatment. This isn't You know, this isn't a broken leg that can be treated with an operation and painkillers. This is your fucking brain. This is the computer of your body. So it takes a hell of a lot more than just tablets to make anyone feel better. So I just, as I said, you know, anyone that's got any issue, just please come and, you know, I'll take time out of my day for anyone. I'm going to try my best to get as many videos uploaded as possible and do a kind of little mini series on this and how things help me and what I do on a daily routine. And yeah, I'm waffling a little bit, so apologies, but please, anyone that needs to talk, drop me a message. It's not a problem at all. I'm more than happy to speak to people because you know, it helps me as well. It helps me to understand more about how people feel and how I can deal with that and how I can help them deal with those things. You know, it's a sad state that we live in at the moment. Nobody interacts on a personal level. Everything's done through the internet and it's fucked. It is fucked. But yeah, I hope everyone has a lovely rest of the week, and if anyone wants to have a chat, please just drop me a message. It's been your boy Kewi Tech. Peace.